In this video, we're going to learn about unit rates. So we can remember from previous lessons that a rate is a comparison of two quantities that have different units. For example, if you had 20 cookies for 5 students, your two different units are cookies and students. Now, a unit rate is a type of rate, so you still have two quantities, but one of those quantities has to be 1. So a unit rate is like the price for 1, the amount for 1, the distance for 1. So in this situation, you would say that there are 4 cookies for each student, for one student. And we'll often use the word per and then leave out the 1. So we might say 4 cookies per student. All right, so first let's look at one of the most common examples of unit rates. It's how we usually talk about gas mileage for cars. So if I drove for 220 miles and I used 10 gallons of gas, let's see what my unit rate was. So we've learned before that we can set this up as a ratio, which is just another name for a rate. So 220 miles over 10 gallons. And then, since we want to make this a unit rate, we're going to say that it's equal to some unknown number of miles out of 1 gallon. You could have set this up and said how many gallons for 1 mile, but that's not a rate that's used very often. So we're going to stick with the one that is more familiar, the one that makes a little bit more sense, which is how many miles for 1 gallon. So just like we've learned before, we can see, 10 gallons to 1 gallon, that's a divide by 10. So then to go for the miles, I must also divide by 10. And that would leave me with 22 miles per gallon. For the record, this is a pretty terrible gas mileage, but I do drive a minivan. So we can see that the minivan gets 22 miles per gallon. I could say 22 miles for 1 gallon, but per gallon's just a little bit cleaner. Another situation where we often see unit rates is when we're at the grocery store. So if you have 2 different packagings for the same item, and they have 2 different costs, and they're 2 different sizes, sometimes it can be hard to tell which one's actually the better deal. Usually the bigger one is, but not always. So let's say we have a 12-ounce bag of chips for $3.60, and I want to compare it to another size bag. So let's find the unit rate for this first. So we have to decide, do we want to know the ounces per dollar, or do we want to know the dollars per ounce? Well, the number of ounces per dollar, or the dollars per ounce. To me, the second one feels like a more useful measurement. So let's go ahead and do the dollars, $3.60 per the 12 ounces. So the first part went on top, the second part went on the bottom. And then we want to know how much is this for 1 ounce. So we'll divide by 12, and we'll divide by 12. We may need to do a little bit of long division here. 12 does not go into 3, but it does go into 36 3 times. Exactly. And then it doesn't go into 0. And then the decimal didn't need to move, so it just comes straight up. So it looks like it comes out to be 30 cents per ounce. So let's say I'm comparing that to a 15-ounce bag of the exact same chips for $3.90. we want to make sure to do the comparison the same way. So we'll do 390 over 15 equals how much for 1 ounce. So we'll divide by 15 and divide by 15. And then we'll do our long division. 390 divided by 15. Well, 15 doesn't go into 3. It does go into 39 twice, giving us 30. And then 15 goes into 90 6 times. We bring the decimal up to the same spot. So this one gives us 26 cents per ounce, whereas the smaller bag costs 30 cents per ounce. So not much of a difference, but if you're really interested in knowing which one's cheaper, it would be the 15-ounce bag. Okay, now here's one for you to try. What is the price per ounce if you spend $4.75 on a 5-pound bag of potatoes? We'll talk about this one in class tomorrow.